1932, architect Hermann Sergel presents his grand Atlantropa project to dam the Strait of Gibraltar. The German leadership sees this as an ideal tool to secure absolute Lebensraum. The project is approved under the secret code name Atlantis, mobilizing all industrial resources. 1934, mass transport of concrete, steel and labour to the Spanish coast begins. Laying of the first super-heavy deep-water caissons starts in the Strait of Gibraltar. Concurrently, a second containment dam is built in the Dardanelles to isolate the Black Sea. Hundreds of construction cranes and barges line up from Europe to Africa into a single reinforced concrete bridge. The world's largest geothermal and hydroelectric turbines are embedded into the Gibraltar Dam. Millions of kilowatts of cheap electricity are funneled straight to Germany's heavy factories and plants. 1938. Gibraltar's main blast gate lowers with a heavy roar, sealing the sea forever. The natural inflow of ocean water is cut off, and the Mediterranean Sea begins to evaporate rapidly. Propaganda paints pictures of a paradise garden and thriving cities in place of the drained sea basin. 1942. Water levels in the Mediterranean fall by 15 metres. The shoreline recedes. Venice loses its water completely, its famous canals turning into muddy, foul-smelling pits. The ports of Genoa, Naples, Marseille and Barcelona find themselves entirely cut off from shipping. Merchant vessels list to their sides, stuck in wet sludge hundreds of metres from the water's edge. Instead of fertile soil, the receding sea exposes millions of square kilometres of toxic white salt. The chemical composition of the seabed makes any farming or crop cultivation strictly impossible. Agricultural tractors sink into the salt crust, their tracks eaten away by rapid corrosion. Southern Europe loses its fisheries and maritime trade, plunging into deep economic chaos. Italy, Greece and France demand that Berlin open the floodgates immediately and stop the drainage. Berlin ignores the diplomatic protests of its allies, keeping all generated electricity for itself. The economic union dissolves, and the first mass riots break out in southern port cities. The most severe climate disaster in the history of the European continent takes effect. 1945. Loss of the water thermal buffer completely alters Europe's natural climate balance. Summer temperatures in Spain, Italy and Greece consistently cross the critical 50 degrees Celsius mark. Once thriving vineyards and olive groves wither away under the relentless scorching sun. Kilometre-high toxic salt and sandstorms rise from the dried seabed. White clouds of salt dust choke the streets of ancient Rome, settling on antique marble statues. Salt dust burns people's lungs and destroys what remains of crops across the continent. Millions of refugees from the south establish makeshift camps along Germany's closed alpine borders. German forces erect reinforced concrete fortifications and machine gun towers to hold back the refugees. While Germany bathes in neon light and free electricity, southern Europe suffocates. The governments of Italy, France and Spain forge a secret politico-military alliance against the Reich. The Southern League's sole objective is the complete destruction of the Gibraltar Dam and the return of ocean waters. Germany immediately transforms the 300-metre-high dam into the most formidable naval fortress in history. 1950. The Gibraltar Dam is covered with a grid of pillboxes and heavy coastal artillery. Large caliber naval turrets and searchlights are installed along the crest of the concrete monolith. June 12, 1952. The combined armies of the South launch an assault on the dam from the salt desert. Armoured crawlers and infantry advance across the white salt flats under the cover of smoke screens. Germany's fortress artillery opens devastating fire, turning the seafloor into a fiery hell. Southern aircraft drop super-heavy bunker-buster bombs on the wall's upper technical galleries and lock gates. Deep structural cracks begin to run across 50 meters of reinforced concrete. High-pressure jets of ocean water force their way through fissures in the concrete. Simultaneously, saboteur teams in heavy diving suits penetrate the flooded internal turbine tunnels. Saboteurs attach heavy thorium explosive charges directly to the primary structural support gates. Mechanical timers count down the final seconds in the gloom of the utility conduits. An underwater explosion of colossal yield shatters the foundation and load-bearing columns of the Gibraltar monolith. At 1420, the central block of the Gibraltar Dam fails under the immense pressure of the Atlantic Ocean. A massive crack expands for kilometers, splitting the reinforced concrete wall in two. A 200-meter wall of ocean water surges into the dried basin with a deafening roar. The mega-wave sweeps away military vehicles, assault tanks, and salt drifts at terrifying speed. The hydrodynamic impact completely obliterates the armies of both factions in the basin within minutes. The raging torrent instantly washes away newly built concrete settlements and infrastructure on the former seabed. A flag bearing the Atlantropa emblem sinks into the dark, churning foam of the Russian Ocean. The tsunami wave reaches the dry piers of Marseille, Naples, and Barcelona, reducing them to ruins. Venice is flooded once more, but violent waves shatter the historic facades of its palazzos beyond repair. The second dam in the Dardanelles fails under reverse hydraulic pressure and bursts instantly. Ocean water dissolves thick salt layers on the seabed, turning the new sea into a toxic brine. The full restoration of historical water levels in the Mediterranean will take a quarter of a century. 1958. The Atlantic breach fails to restore the old sea. The basin turns into an irreversible dead zone. Salt concentration in the murky water spikes 10 times above normal, making marine life forever impossible. Heavy clouds of hydrogen sulfide and toxic acidic vapours rise relentlessly from the basin floor. A thick yellow-green chemical fog permanently blankets coastal cities, forcing total evacuations. The governments of the Alpine states build a massive shield wall to permanently isolate the southern wasteland. Southern Europe becomes a sealed containment zone of permanent ecological and biological death. 1965. Northern nations abandon the south, building an isolated economy based on heavy coal and nuclear power. Coastal areas of the Mediterranean remain buried under a thick, permanent grey salt crust. Only 2 rusted concrete stumps of the Gibraltar construction project remain jutting out of the brine. The attempt to conquer nature through weapons and concrete ends in an absolute, unhealable scar on Earth. In school textbooks, Project Atlantis is described as the crime that permanently ruined a continent. Humanity learns to accept that some technological mistakes can never be fixed or forgiven. 1970. 2 decades after the breach, Europe lives under the reality of a dead southern frontier. Coastal cities are replaced by fortified observation posts set behind thick, lead-coated barriers. Automated warning sirens near the ruins of the Gibraltar Wall howl continuously to mark toxic gas surges. The International Geo-Control Committee maintains a permanent exclusion protocol over the basin. All blueprints, mapping charts, and documents of Project Atlantis are classified as forbidden research. The archives are buried deep inside underground vaults beneath tons of poured lead and concrete. Memorial plaques in northern cities list millions of names lost to the salt storms and chemical fog. Life in southern Europe is reduced to sealed, heavily pressurized bunker cities reliant on artificial air. Scientists admit that the chemical composition of the Mediterranean Sea is ruined for thousands of years. A permanent state of respiratory ailments and heavy industrial pollution becomes the norm for survivors. The Mediterranean basin stands as a perpetual, rotting monument to human arrogance. The era of optimism gives way to a grim, cynical age of strict containment and resource rationing. 1980. The World Foundation for Environmental Containment focuses solely on preventing further gas leaks. Heavy armoured submersibles patrol the submerged ruins of the Gibraltar Dam to plug structural fractures. Giant generator rotors lie buried under toxic chemical sludge at a depth of hundreds of meters. Underwater footage reveals a dead, silent abyss devoid of any plant or animal life. Former resorts in southern Europe stand as abandoned ghost towns coated in hard, crystalline salt. Environmental sensors confirm that hydrogen sulfide clouds have become a permanent feature of local weather. People who remain in the south live strictly indoors, wearing heavy brass respirators whenever stepping outside. Architecture in the region shifts entirely to thick concrete blocks designed to withstand chemical corrosion. Ships navigating the new Dead Sea are heavy, iron-hulled barges equipped with sealed air systems. Trade between continents is strictly regulated through heavily militarized, sealed transit corridors. The world accepts that the Mediterranean will never recover, integrating the dead zone into daily geopolitics. Humanity moves forward not in triumph, but in grim acceptance of a permanently damaged planet. 1990. Heavy coal and nuclear complexes power the heavily filtered, enclosed cities of the north. Industrial emissions are heavily managed, yet acid rain remains a routine part of European autumns. Asphalt roads are permanently replaced by composite slabs designed to survive constant salt air exposure. Urban greenery is limited to sealed, artificially lit indoor greenhouses controlled by state rationing. Specialized chemical trains continuously spray neutralizers around city perimeters to hold back the salt dust. The sky over Europe retains a permanent pale yellowish haze from high-altitude chemical remnants. Children in southern zones grow up without ever seeing open blue water or natural green forests. Subways in European capitals operate as permanent fallout shelters equipped with oxygen generators. The word sea in southern Europe becomes synonymous with toxic danger and dead salt flats. The history of the Salt War is taught not as a victory, but as an inescapable lesson in human ruin. Civilization endures through industrial discipline, heavy engineering, and harsh law enforcement. Surviving humanity adapts to the scarred landscape, building a cold, hard world of concrete and iron. 2000. The International Museum of Geo-Ecological Crime opens in a bunker near Geneva. A cracked, rusted iron model of the 1932 Gibraltar Dam sits inside a vacuum-sealed glass case. Thick armoured windows offer a view of the heavy smog hanging over the distant Alpine defence wall. Visitors silently walk through galleries documenting 30 years of ecological decay and displacement. Multimedia maps display the permanent expansion of salt deserts across former coastal regions. School children undergo mandatory biohazard drills, learning how to seal mask filters in seconds. Declassified Project Atlantis documents serve as a grim warning of the dangers of technocratic hubris. Scientists confirm that the Mediterranean's salinity has permanently killed the basin's natural water cycle. The ecosystem did not self-cleanse, It stabilized into a toxic, stagnant chemical lake. Humanity learned to survive within the ruins, paying a permanent price for the ambition of 1938. The world of the 21st century offers no promises of restoration, only strict management of the damage. The biosphere remains forever altered, a constant reminder of what was lost to war and concrete. 2008, the world marked 70 years since the sealing of the Strait of Gibraltar with silent memorial sirens. A black granite wall of remembrance stands along the concrete stumps of the destroyed dam. Heavy military outposts line the ruins, ensuring no unauthorized vessels enter the toxic dead zone. A live broadcast shows the vast, grey, lifeless expanse of the Mediterranean under a yellow sky. Research ships drop chemical sensors into the brine, confirming zero biological activity at all depths. Oceanographers accept that Atlantic currents will remain permanently disrupted by the saline barrier. Merchant transports travel long, expensive detours around Africa or through northern rail networks. The fear of the salt desert has evolved into a permanent, ingrained aspect of global culture and architecture. The Mediterranean Sea remains a dead, poisoned chasm between continents never to bloom again. Descendants live with the consequences, building their lives around filtration systems and sealed domes. The lesson of 1938 is written in salt, stone, and dead water across a third of the Eastern Hemisphere. Earth remains a scarred, tough home where humanity survives by respecting the limits of a damaged world. Humanity endured the consequences of the 20th century's worst geoengineering disaster. Project Atlantis proved that nature, once broken on a planetary scale, cannot simply be put back together. The alternative path of development built a tough industrial civilization forged in survival and discipline. Steam, iron, and nuclear power keep the sealed cities alive, but the old green world is gone forever. Cities along the dead zone stand behind concrete walls, powered by heavy, shielded energy grids. The experience gained from the disaster is used to manage a permanently altered global climate. Every citizen accepts the harsh realities of a world where environmental mistakes are permanent. The history of Project Atlantis remains a dark milestone in the archives of human history. The lesson of the dried sea proved that technological hubris leaves wounds that time cannot heal. The world of the future is built upon containment, caution, and unyielding industrial adaptation. We close this file accepting the dark reality of an alternate 20th century that lost its ocean. The archives of parallel history remain logged, recorded in salt, iron, and silent concrete. The years 1938 to 1952 remain recorded as the era of the great unhealing scar. An engineering crime of the past created a permanent wasteland that humanity had to learn to live with. National rivalries were replaced by a cold, utilitarian focus on regional survival and containment. Military pacts yielded to harsh environmental control boards and mandatory biosecurity laws. Renouncing further geoengineering projects prevented total planetary death, but the scar remained. Today, the Strait of Gibraltar stands as two rusted concrete stumps overlooking a dead chemical sea. Ships fly warning flags as they pass through heavily guarded transit gates outside the exclusion zone. The grey waters of the Mediterranean offer no life, serving only as a reminder of the price of ambition. Scientific institutes work not to restore the Dead Sea, but to keep its toxic fumes from spreading further. The alternate chronicle of the 20th century shows a world that survived, but lost its paradise forever. We inherited a damaged planet, adapting our engineering to endure within a harsher reality. The lesson of Project Atlantis is carved into the dead stone of Europe, learned completely and forever. Thank you for exploring alternate timelines with Alternative Outline 20th. Each declassified file unveils new, unvarnished realities of parallel, technologically hardened worlds. History has no subjunctive mood, and analysing dark paths helps us see the true fragility of our world. Technological progress without wisdom leaves scars that no future generation can erase. We continue our work in decrypting the next classified archives of the 20th century. New sobering discoveries and alternate chronicles await you in upcoming episodes. Preserving historical memory is the key to avoiding the catastrophic errors of the past. The parallel worlds of heavy dieselpunk, environmental containment, and hard realism open before you. Every detail of a scarred past creates a complete, uncompromising picture of another present. Stay with us on the frequency of analytical truth and unvarnished historical exploration. The world of Alternative Outline awaits your theories, thoughts, and analytical comments. Together we uncover the darkest secrets that were hidden under the stamp of top secret. This could have been our reality, way, a stark reminder of the permanent price paid for reckless ambition. Subscribe to Alternative Outline 20th, click the bell icon, and leave your theories in the comments below. Share this video with fans of hard alternate history and realistic dieselpunk. Thank you for watching and supporting our channel.